Welcome to the Simply Real Life podcast. I'm Sarah, the founder of Simply Real Health, here to help you simplify, amplify, and elevate your life. This show is for those of you who want the real talk on how to live a more intuitive and intentional life, a life that's healthy from the inside out, and one that feels more effortless, aligned, simple, and more alive. We cover it all, from health, wellness, mindset, motherhood, daily habits and rituals, to business and relationships, creativity and growth, and tiny tricks to feeling your best, and the energetics behind it all filled with personal stories, unfiltered conversations, and of course, answering all of your burning questions, all in the way of simplicity and keeping it real, so that you can create your own version of your healthiest life. Let's do it. Hello. Welcome back to the show this week. Okay, I've got such a juicy one for you. So juicy, in fact, that it came in as a question on question and answer day on Instagram. And I started typing out my answer because I thought, okay, this is pretty simple. I can just answer this. This will take me 1 or 2 minutes. Um, a cool 20 minutes later, I'm on my fourth slide trying to explain the intricacies of this question. And then I thought, this is why we have the podcast. I'm going to take this one to the mic instead. And so that's what we're going to do today. I just love it when you guys submit those questions because there are so many, I think, little parts of daily life that sometimes stump us or confuse us, especially when you're trying to get to the root of things. Like you're not trying to cover up different symptoms. You're not trying to trick your body anymore. You're at this place where you're like, I'm done with all of that. I'm done with all of the fads, all of the diets. I'm done with all of the marketing and all the hype. And I really want to get to this place where it feels more stable. My body feels more steady. And I can kind of tap into that wisdom, that wisdom I'm talking about all the time. We have this deep wisdom in our bodies, but sometimes the process of learning how to actually tap into that, to live and eat and move more intuitively without that sounding like this high in the sky, floaty, fleeting concept. No, what does that actually feel like and actually look like? So this is one of those examples, this question today. And here it is. The question that came in was snacking or no snacking? I would love your thoughts on this. Thanks. So my first response to this is that everybody is different. Everybody's body is different. Your genetics are different. Your season of life is different. You have to start thinking about what is good for me? What works for me? What is my body telling me? And so many people do feel so disconnected from what their body's saying and the signal that it's giving. And I truly believe that our bodies give us signals all the time, like hundreds of times every single day. But most of us are not raised in a culture, like the societal norms are not ones that teach us to tap into that and really listen. And what does that mean? And what are all the different signs and signals? As best I can in this episode, I'm going to walk you through 3 of the first steps you can take to even figure out, what is my body saying? What does it need? Specifically, so when it's something like snacking or food, like what is the right timing for you? What's the right daily rhythm for you? Because what may work for somebody else does not mean that it's going to work for you. And I think that's one of the major issues when it comes to most structured ways of eating, where there's yes foods and no foods, whether that's a particular diet or it's just more of a preference or way of eating. The problem with that is that they can work really well for certain types of people, maybe even based on their blood type. People who have type O blood, O positive, they do so much better with having more red meat in their life and more protein. They need that more often in their day than people who have blood types A or B or AB. So sometimes it even comes down to genetics, to body type, to family history, to your heritage, even which types of food your body digests very well, which types of food it doesn't. And so, first of all, just owning that. Stop looking at what everybody else is doing. Stop looking at what the trend or the fad is, because people, that is always going to change. It's always going to change. There's always going to be the new way of eating. And oh, no, this is best now. And if you look back, even over the last 20 years, there's at least 20 different diets or ways of eating, or the more structured eating. That's what I'll call it. That includes everything. So when you look back on those things, like they've all had their heyday and then they've all had the time where it's like, oh, what do you know? It actually comes back that eating a variety of unprocessed foods is usually the best place to start. So thinking to yourself, all right, what do I know about my body? How have I typically operated and been for what I can remember of my life? And taking into account, let's say, if you were in high school and you were a big athlete, of course, your type of eating and your pattern of eating and how often and what you were eating was probably going to be very different because of the type and level of activity that you were doing. So I just want you to think in your adult life, what do you know about yourself? Have you typically been more of a fast burner? So this just means you are somebody that has a little bit of a higher metabolism, like you feel like you do need to eat pretty often. You do feel hungry. If you don't eat often, you oftentimes get signs of feeling foggy or dizzy, or maybe even lightheaded, or you feel off or low energy. You can be a fast burner. Like the other side of it could be you could be a slow burner, which is what I am, by the way. So being a slow burner means that when you're looking at how other people around you are maybe eating, you're thinking, oh my gosh, if I ate at that frequency or that amount that maybe you see others or your peers or your friends eating, you would be like, I would feel horrible. I would feel stuffed all the time. So thinking through your family, I can think even in my own family, I think my dad is more of a slow burner. I think my mom's absolutely a fast burner. And so starting to piece together some of those pieces. And granted, yes, this can change. If you have big life factors that have changed, your activity levels have massively changed. If you're in a stage or season of life where maybe you're pregnant or you're nursing, like this conversation doesn't apply to you. You just need to focus on what season of life are you in right now and how can you be serving your body? What is your body telling you in that particular season or moment that may be very different than your quote unquote normal life? Okay. So check in with that. What do you know? Are you maybe tending more on the faster side? You can eat very often and frequently and maybe eat whatever you want, or typically have had that in the past and maybe it's starting to feel like it's catching up to you now. Or are you more in the boat of it seems like whatever you eat, no matter how healthy it is, like if you have gone on any weight loss journey or pursuits, that it always feels really hard to do so. Maybe it becomes easier to other people around you. So just start to think maybe where you are on that spectrum. And then you can also be in the middle of that. It's not saying that everybody is one way or the other, but I think people usually have some tendencies. So it's really good to identify first. First, I will say this. In general, here's my answer. Snacking is not great. It is fine, and it is not a bad thing. So please listen to how I'm saying this. Snacking is, I think, this thing in our culture that has been so widely permissible that it's always the constant advice. When in doubt, eat. When in doubt, every 2 hours, you have to have a snack to keep your energy up. But here's the problem with that. The content and the quality of most snack foods is not great. They are the types of foods that have either lots of chemicals or they have tons of added sugar or tons of things that are not going to satiate you well. There's not a lot of protein, there's not a lot of fat. It is usually sugar based or very carbohydrate based. And those two foods, what they do is spike your blood sugar. The more your blood sugar spikes up, the longer and harder it crashes. And so, what I find for most people is that if they are not eating real food, or they're sometimes eating real food, but then sometimes have more of the processed food involved in their daily life, they are going to be more hungry. They are going to feel like they do have to eat more and that they do have to snack. And they have this fear or panic that if they go for longer than 2 hours, they're like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? It's very much a fear-based mentality, which, by the way, can be based in truth. Because if your blood sugar is peaking and then crashing like that, it is a panic situation. That's where you get the word hangry and you're mean and your mood drastically changes. And none of that happens when you're eating real food. So that would be the first thing to actually take a look at. If you feel like you live by snacks, you need them on you at all times, first ask yourself, what is the quality of the food that I'm eating? Am I eating real food? Mostly, I want to say 90% of the time, or not, because that may be the best place to start. When you eat more real food as your norm, as the thing that you do most often, most days, your blood sugar will naturally be so much more stable and steady than if you are eating other types of food. So people who eat real food find that they actually don't need to snack at all or very often. Granted, remember what I said first. If you're a fast burner or if you're a slow burner, that also comes into account. I know people and clients, and when I've done my group program, Simply Real Life, I would say it's about 50-50. Once they get on to real food, and they've been doing that for a couple weeks, and their body's starting to reshift and get settled and actually acclimate, they do find that if they are eating real food, if you're a fast burner, maybe you do need a snack, but maybe it's not every day. If you're in a season of life where maybe you're pregnant, maybe you're nursing, maybe you've got some health stuff going on, that maybe you do have a snack, but it's something that you're really in tune with your body. It's not that you're doing it automatically or because it's a certain time on the clock. It's because your body actually feels hungry. So that brings me to my second point. If you are eating real food, it is so much easier to actually determine your true hunger. And true hunger is not a scary thing like most people think. True hunger actually comes on very slowly, very calmly, very naturally. It's not this it's a panic button situation, freak out, you're going to melt down, you're going to faint, you're going to pass out. That's how most of us operate. That's kind of the American tendency and way of eating, is to be going through your day and you're almost like slapping these blood sugar band-aids on yourself by just grabbing whatever you can just to make it through the next hour. So I'm encouraging you today, if you feel like that is you, it's a really annoying way to live. I personally think so, where you're having to stop every 2 hours, maybe every 3 hours of your life to stop and find something to eat. But the quality of that food, if it's snack food, something that's packaged, something that's easy, grab and go, you don't need to think much about it, is probably actually doing you more harm than good. So I am always a fan of like, let's get to the root cause here. Instead of slapping band-aids on things just to get through the day, let's think about why this is happening in the first place and can we fix something there? That's what that transition to real food does, is one of the many benefits of eating real food, most of which is that you start to think about your food less. Because when you're eating, the content of what you are eating has so much more nutrients than any snack food ever does. So instead of relying only on snacks, I would really encourage you to think about your meals. What do they look like? Are they balanced? Are they made with real food? Is there some sort of element of protein or healthy fat that is in your meal that's going to help you go the distance? Most people find that once they start eating real food, the amount of food that they actually need or want is way less. And that's because everything that you are eating is doing a job in your body. It's serving you, it's lifting you, it's nourishing you, it's doing something, versus a lot of the snack food and packaged food, the stuff that's grab and go. Because again, that matches so much with our culture and society of don't stop for anything. Just keep going, just keep pushing. The only thing that matters is you being productive. That's what's really rewarded. So this, what I'm saying, is totally countercultural. And as with most things that I've been talking about on this show, you have to be okay with that, of going against the grain a little bit in order to feel so much better in your life, in order to actually think about food way less. That's what real food really helps you do. And when you do have it, you enjoy it and it's amazing and it tastes great and it fills you up and it's doing its job and you are being a better partner to your body in that way, giving it the things that it actually needs, giving it the raw materials that it actually needs to do its job in your digestive system, for your immune system, for every system in your body. They need those minerals and nutrients to run. And if you're not giving your body those things and then you're demanding this very high workload, very high stress level, but you're not giving it those raw materials, that's where it really starts to conflict, where you really don't feel good, or you require tons of sugar, tons of snacks, tons of caffeine just to get through the day. You're propping yourself up all day long. And then a lot of times people will need like the pressure relievers at the end of the day, like the glass of wine. So instead of thinking about this conversation as like snacking is good or snacking is bad, it's just more of a observation for yourself of like, where am I at in this spectrum? What is the content of my food? What's the quality of my food? Am I eating real food? If I'm eating real food and I do feel like my body is hungry more often, great. Eat. Eat food, like eat real food. It doesn't have to be a quote unquote a snack. A snack is just real food, but maybe in a smaller amount. There's no difference to me, like snack food versus food that I have at my meals. It's just all real food. If I'm hungry, then I eat and I eat real food. So I think there's so many nuances to this conversation of once you're eating real food, then you're better able to listen to your actual hunger. When you are more nourished, it becomes so much more clear when you're actually hungry versus whether it's emotional eating or you're stressed out. The mental emotional connection to when and how and where we reach for something to eat is insane. It is insanely connected. So the first step is always looking at your food. It's looking at your normal, typical daily rhythms. It's asking yourself when you're eating, you're actually doing service to your body. Or is what you're eating taking away? It's taking away energy from your body to try and figure out what to do with that food that it cannot decode. It cannot process well. It's stuff that is not recognizable. It's not one ingredient. It's not something that your body's been eating or consuming for thousands of years, the human body. All of that stuff just gunks up the system. So when you're eating real food, you're eating probably less volume overall, but you are more fed. When you eat real food, you're also more hydrated, which has such a deep connection to your hunger. That's why I say one of the best things you can do for yourself that takes under 2 minutes is when you wake up after you tongue scrape and brush your teeth, go drink water. Chlorophyll water, lemon water, chia seed water, it doesn't matter. Drink water first before you go for anything else. You're giving your body that boost that it needs because so many people walk around thinking that they're hungry or that they need a snack when actually they're just dehydrated. When you're also eating real food, not only are you eating less, but it's more nutrients and you're more hydrated, you then also start to get better sleep because your body is starting to regulate itself. When you're getting better sleep, guess what? You probably need less caffeine. When you need less caffeine, guess what? You probably don't need to be eating a snack because that's really just intense amounts of coffee triggering your stomach to feel unsettled. So then you feel like you do have to eat. Do you see how all of this goes together? And then there's this component, which I feel like is so interesting to mention just to get your brain thinking, is that our hunger changes every day a little bit. Like none of us are walking around like robots, nor should we be. But this concept that it's not going to look the same every single day because our bodies are constantly changing and adjusting what they need. In different seasons of life, you will need different things, or different types of foods will feel really good to you and others won't. In certain days, at certain times of year, you may find that you are more hungry or your body needs more from you. And so I would just really encourage you, because once you can start to figure that out, like really starting to care better for your body by the inputs that you're putting in, all of these downstream effects start to happen that help you naturally become more in tune with your body. Because when you're feeding it good stuff, you do start to notice like, oh, this feels different. This is feeling better. Oh, I no longer have to do this or act like this or prepare like this anymore to get through my day. And once you start to see all those connection points, then it can really start to build on top of each other much more rapidly, where you start to pay attention to, okay, I ate this. How did that make me feel? How did that make me feel not only in the hour after I ate it, but then like 3 hours later, maybe later that night, the next morning? And you really start to be able to put together so many pieces of the puzzle. This is why I'm obsessed with real food. This is why I think that real food is such the starting point of living a more intuitive and intentional life. Because with that one step, that one change, that one shift into real food, so many of these other things start to come together almost naturally. I mean, you will want to pay attention and maybe start taking some notes and reflecting on that. But once you have so much more energy, which usually can happen within a week or a week and a half of eating real food, you're like, all right, this is motivating. I'm seeing the results. Let's keep going. There's something to this here. On the flip side, too, if you find yourself feeling like you're constantly hungry and you're constantly needing snacks and you're always thinking about food, it can also be a good reason to see, like, okay, if that is a true physical need, or is this more of an emotional thing going on for me? What's going on in my life right now? What's going on in my heart right now? What's going on in my mental headspace that maybe I'm not saying or I don't want to admit to myself? This is where something like journaling can be so helpful. If you're trying to piece together, gosh, I'm snacking all the time, can be a little flag, a little note to yourself, like, what else is going on in my life? So as you can see, it's such a nuanced conversation. It's not that snacking is good or bad or that people should be doing it or not. It really matters about what is going to work well and what feels good in your body. But the only way that you can really get there is to make sure that your blood sugar is stable, that your body is actually nourished, and then you have a clean slate to figure out, okay, what else is going on here? Or did that just take care of it automatically? Because that's what happens for most people. So there's no shame, there's no guilt in snacking. Snack food does not have to be different than the food that's at your meals. It's the same food, it's just real food. And so I think, at least for me, that realization has freed me up so much time, so much energy, all of that mental stress, time spent thinking about it, planning for it, planning your life around when you need to eat. It's so much more freeing to just be eating real food and knowing that your blood sugar is stable and you're fine and you're steady. And even if you're hungry, it comes on very slowly and you can drink some water and then you can eat when you can, but it's not this like urgent, immediate emergency situation. So I hope that that helps give you a little bit of a deeper lay of the land here. It's not good. It's not bad. It matters what's going on for you physically, mentally, emotionally, and then being able to adjust from there. But the starting point is always eating real food. And I think that makes everything else so much easier. I hope this was so helpful, and we'll see you back here next week. If you enjoyed this episode and want more like it, make sure you're subscribed to the Simply Real Life podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and maybe share it with a friend or two. That would mean the world.